Principal Secretary Sir, to PATEL Sir, to Ishwar Bhai Sir, and thanks to the Climate Change Department, Gujarat government. So I'll start by giving a kind of a brief overview of the current situation. So as we know, India as a country is transitioning from a coal-based economy to one driven by renewable energy. But different states are at different levels in this transition path. And as we saw in the presentation by Patil Sir, Gujarat has already achieved a lot of milestones in integrating renewable energy into its energy mix. So as this state, it continues to present itself as a role model for many other states in the country. There are a few things that can further help in ensuring that this transition is green, smooth, and benefits everyone in the equally in the community. So let's take a step back, and I think it's a very opportune moment to actually stop and assess how a pandemic like COVID-19 has impacted our country and actually has an impact on the transition to clean economy as well. So when you look at these numbers, one can see that there are definitely some areas of improvement in India. So actually the current situation, if you think about it, it re-emphasizes on the need to continue to focus on clean energy solutions for a state like Gujarat, which has been and can continue to be a role model for other states of the country. So this just presents, these numbers put in perspective the current kind of gaps in our health system. And I think clean energy can actually be the bridge for helping in achieving some of these targets, be it around the mortality rates for infants or around maternal mortality rates or even for immunization. So given our work in WRI, I'll be sharing some 4 key theme areas which can actually help in the transition of Gujarat to a cleaner and continue on the journey to the transition to a cleaner and a more sustainable economy as we come out of this COVID pandemic. So quickly, these 4 areas are how we achieve energy access, how we achieve energy access and development for all, how we provide equal opportunities for all, how we create new development models, and how we develop integrated plans for all. So moving forward, So more than often we have seen that in the context of the larger, in context of any developing country, the rural areas suffer due to poor energy access or poor quality of power. And this lack of power is not just limited to a particular sector, but affects all sectors equally. For example, if it's livelihood, anything from irrigation to processing to storage requires electricity. And with the lockdown and increasing number of COVID-19 cases in rural India, I think this is the time to invest in developing in the rural electricity infrastructure, which can be further enhanced by using clean energy. So this is where we are talking about how to use this concept of clean energy and transitions for ensuring equality and development for all. Let me take you through a few examples. So in particular, how is this relevant for the state of Gujarat? So as we know, Gujarat as a state has been facing challenges in terms of water scarcity, heat waves, and rising mercury levels in its water. So the idea of development for all is to how the state can focus on the most vulnerable communities, which also has been referred to in the previous presentations and webinars by my colleagues Lubaina and Namrata in the past. So the solutions for actually improving these services, be it on health, education, or water, can be customized based on the local conditions. And Gujarat has already been doing that to a huge extent. So for example, where there is water scarcity, you can use a mix of drip irrigation along with solar water pumps. On the health front, we know that Gujarat has already provided a role model where the sub-centers, in the primary health centers in Surat have been electrified using renewable energy. I think it's one of the first districts in India to have actually achieved that. And given that we know that there are some sub-centers which are working without electricity and some which are operating without regular water supply, we can actually learn from the Surat model to ensure that these kind of benefits reach everyone. Another example in which we can show how clean energy can be used is basically how you can free water of any kind of contamination, be it drinking water or running water, by using solar power. So by adopting some of these practices, we can ensure that development actually reaches to the kind of furthest away community in the state while reducing the carbon impact, the carbon footprint of the state. And these are examples from our other work in our other states of India. So the second category which I wanted to discuss was equal opportunities for all. What do we mean by equal opportunities? So with the large renewable energy projects and more in planning, Gujarat can actually set a role model for the whole renewable energy industry in trying to ensure good jobs. And in fact, if you look at the current situation where we have seen so much migration of people from one state to the another, with this large infrastructure projects that Gujarat is planning right now, including the 35 gigawatt renewable energy projects as shared by PATEL sir up till 2022, and the thousands of jobs which have been created by the state, Gujarat can actually pave the way for providing good jobs to help reduce the impact and reduce these kind of migrations between the states, income losses for the people of Gujarat and outside Gujarat who are working in Gujarat in the future. So this can be done if the state can focus on 4 key components, which I have listed here as well. One is around the income security, one is around health benefits, the third is around safety standards at work, and the final is around training for growth and development within the job. And keeping all of this in mind, I think one key area to look at is how you empower more and more women. So this is some of the recommendations that we had provided in our work, which we did on renewable energy and jobs, basically looking at how renewable energy jobs can reduce poverty, and how some of these training programs, for example, can be customized for the most remotest areas of the country for people who do not have access to jobs or quality education, and how you link employers with employees. So if you are interested, you can see the link at the bottom for more details. The third point that I would like to pick up is on the development models. So supporting new development models is key. It is important to develop a conducive ecosystem where technology and financing supported by policies can help in nurturing these kind of new models. And I'll present a very kind of quick example of the work that we are doing, which is actually something that you can pick from the ground and feed into larger schemes. So for example, we were working with this MSME clusters in Naroda, where we tried to aggregate the demand for renewable energy to reduce carbon emissions from these clusters. And this proof of concept actually led to several kilowatt of solar installation. And one key thing to do is to basically make sure that multiple stakeholders can work together in this context, and how the government can actually involve these different stakeholders and set aside separate fund for supporting these kind of new models, particularly in the post-COVID-19 scenario. As MSMEs continue to struggle, it is even more important to support such initiatives to clean their value chains for supporting growth in the future while reducing climate impacts. So this is the third component, and I finally go to the last component, which is kind of the overarching component, and I'll conclude with this slide. This slide basically shows how energy is interconnected with majority of the sustainable development goals. If you see, it is connected with the achievement of 74% of the sustainable development goals. Now, to make this possible, it is very, very important to keep the needs of all the development sectors and industries in mind while designing and implementing energy plans and vice versa. So the key here is to ensure that the energy sector, for example, speaks to the health sector, education sector, the industrial sector, and vice versa. And these inputs from the ground can be actually very crucial to make sure that the state is able to move ahead on its development plans. So I would conclude by saying that as the state continues to move ahead economically, it is important to consider these elements to ensure that the energy transition benefits the masses and helps in cleaning the economy while meeting the sustainable development goals. I'll conclude with this slide, and thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you to the team who has